India's Monetary Policy Committee is expected to deliver a third consecutive interest rate cut when it announces its decision on Thursday. Before we go into the economic rationale, let's tell you what the Bloomberg poll is suggesting. A poll of 36 economists suggests that 27 of them are expecting an interest rate cut of 25 basis points. 7 economists are saying there'll be a status quo on rates. One is saying that there'll be a 35 basis point cut. That 35 basis point cut emerges from commentary from the RBI governor a few months back, which questioned why we only stick to 25 or 50 basis point rate moves. Why can't we think out of the box? He asked. So at least one economist is convinced that a 35 basis point cut is the right thing to do right now. One economist is saying that you need a 50 basis point cut. What is the expectation? The expectation is built on the growth numbers largely because, as you know, growth has been weak and it's been weakening. We got a 5.8% GDP print for the fourth quarter of FY19, but it's not so much about that quarter alone. It's about the fact that growth has fallen from 8% in the first quarter of FY19 to 5.8%. So the judgment that the MPC needs to make is whether there are causes that are slowing the economy which need to be addressed via monetary policy. Let me explain. For instance, if rural demand is a problem, then perhaps the MPC could judge that the PM Kisan Yojana is already addressing some of those issues. Also, if investment is what led to that 5.8% GDP number in Q4, then perhaps the MPC could judge that some of that was due to pre-election uncertainty. So the MPC will weigh where the growth slowdown is coming from, how much of it is durable, how much of it is idiosyncratic and could sort itself out, and only then decide whether another interest rate cut is needed. The committee may be divided once again. We've been seeing that for the last few meetings, so I wouldn't expect a consensus call this time around either, unless there is a perception that growth is weakening rapidly and needs more monetary support. Should the MPC go in that direction, the inflation scenario will actually be supportive right now. While we have seen headline inflation move up to about 3%, 2.9%, we have also seen core inflation come down for the last few months. That should give the MPC comfort, but also suggest that there is some weakening in demand conditions which is showing up on core inflation. Also, while headline is rising at 3%, it's very well within the MPC's target band of 4 plus minus 2%. Now, apart from growth inflation, there will be a question of liquidity. Remember, the 50 basis point cuts that were announced so far have not transmitted, at least through the banking system, and the reason for that is that liquidity has been extremely tight pretty much throughout, and there's been a clamor in the money markets for more liquidity. Problem is that the money market folks will find it tough to convince the MPC of that need for liquidity, because on Tuesday, going into the policy, liquidity finally turned surplus. So, telling the RBI now that they need to intervene more on liquidity will be a little tough. Nevertheless, they do want the RBI to perhaps give some sort of indication that they're willing to allow liquidity to remain in surplus mode. So far, the RBI has preferred liquidity to remain deficit so that the operative rates in the market remain close to the repo rate, which is what they fix. The bond markets, were a problem until recently, but again, bond yields have come off quite significantly, partly due to global factors and local factors. But it's tough to argue now that those 50 basis point cuts have not transmitted into the bond markets, because yields have come down to 7% from about 7.40 a month ago. But still, the bond markets would like to see a little bit more than just a 25 basis point cut for this rally to continue. So they would hope that along with a 25 basis point cut, you get at least a stance change to neutral, or some sort of indication that the RBI has changed its liquidity framework or its liquidity thinking and is willing to allow surplus liquidity to sustain. Those are some of the questions that will be answered on Thursday. Stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint, where we'll get you all the analysis and the news.